Okay, now we're going to take a look at images that I have selected based upon the client brief. These are all images that I've pulled from Creative Commons sources. What I like about this first image is the border of the film strip. It's super cool with the arrow and the letters and the numbers. Again, I really like the border of this image. The film sprockets are super cool. I was highly inspired by the silhouette images that we saw in the client selects and reference photos. So I found several photos throughout that are silhouettes, this being one of them. Just a really cool vintage photo of some soldiers. When I saw this image, I immediately thought iconic. Here's a really cool shot of a tank. I don't think this is necessarily an American tank or American soldiers, but I could probably use this image in the design without the viewer ever knowing this was not an American tank. This is a super cool newspaper article I came across. I really like how it has the American flags. It says New York American and War with Germany. Several key elements that could be used in the design. This copy is really cool. I like the American crest in the left and right corners, how the copy says United States of America, and how it also says War Ration Book. Even the coffee stains on the paper are super cool. Here we've come back to the American flag that the client selected. What I like about this image is the framing of the photo. I could do without the foreground arm that's protruding in the right side of the frame, but otherwise a cool shot. Great headline, ceasefire, exclamation point, all GIs out of Viet in 60 days. Okay, when I saw this image, I immediately thought of Star Wars. To me, this almost looks like it could be straight out of a sci-fi movie, with the soldier standing in front of the sun in this military vehicle. The colors are also really cool in this shot. Again, another tank photo. I don't believe this is an American tank, but I could possibly use it in ways that you would never know it's not an American tank. Another tank shot silhouetted against the night sky. I came across this image in my search, and I've got to think that this image was taken just before the client select image. In that image, the front gate of the vehicle is open and the soldiers are in the water. To me, this looks like it took place just before that photo. I really like the black and white monochrome look in this. I like the soldiers running, the reflection of the soldiers in the water, the smoke in the air. This is a photo from the CIA. Each star represents a fallen soldier. Very, very powerful image. This is just a cool shot of a company, I believe from World War I. I came across the Constitution. The texture, the handwriting, the text, "We the People," any of this could be used in the style frames. This is just a super cool shot of a bunch of soldiers walking in the desert. This image really struck a chord with me. The soldier's weathered face, he looks tired and worn out from war. And this shot to me was so iconic. Here's another great silhouetted shot of a soldier standing against the sunset. This is a great framing photo. I'm sure I can use this as a framing device in the style frames. Again, another silhouetted soldier shot. Here's the shot from the client. Again, another select from the client. This is a great framing device. I believe it's from an old slide. Here's another old slide photo. Very powerful photo here of a military officer holding a flag. Another great silhouetted shot. A client select. This shot immediately reminded me of a word in the creative brief that said brotherhood. Here are just some badass, probably Navy SEALs jumping out of a plane. What I really like about this American flag, again, is the texture and the weatheredness in the flag. It's not a perfect American flag. This is really cool to be used as a bordering device as well as a texturing device. Cool image. This to me is a very powerful image. Number one, because the officer is saluting, and number two, the depth of field really got me on this photo. Another great example of a silhouetted soldier against the sunset. Great photo here of a citizen, I believe, possibly a soldier, waving the American flag in the sunlight. This photo actually reminds me of a Michael Bay film. This is a cool image, probably from Vietnam. It's got a grittiness to it. This to me is just an iconic photo showing the White House with soldiers in uniform standing in front of it. Another badass shot, silhouetted Navy SEALs, and a variation of that shot. Here we have some silhouetted soldiers standing against the sunlight on the ocean. This is a very patriotic shot with the famous statue in the background. Thought this was just cool. Another really cool shot. This is a shot similar to the first jet we saw earlier in the selects I have. This is a cool vintage shot with an old tank and soldiers running into the smoke, running into battle. I really like the headline in this, even though the image is small. The fact that it says New York Times, President calls for war declaration. Okay, so next I have several ink selects I've picked to use throughout the design. I have a lot of ink footage in my arsenal of stock footage. I've collected this stuff over the years. I also use a few clips in this from a guy named Mitch Martinez. You can find him at mitchmartinez.com. His website has a lot of free stock footage on it. Some of those clips of stock footage being ink drops. It's very gracious of him to give this stuff out for free. Another great place that I found a lot of useful ink footage clips was on VideoHive. VideoHive is a great resource for After Effects elements. I don't ever believe that you should take a VideoHive template and just plug in your information and call it a day. What I do think VideoHive is good for is starting elements. Here are some full screen ink drops. You can do so much with ink footage. I'm a huge fan of it. Here's more additional ink shots. You'll find that in my designs, I do only use a handful of these ink shots. and I repeat them, but it's always great to have more than you need to start with whenever doing a design. I guess I should also mention at this point that we are going to be designing in After Effects, and that's why I've got a lot of ink footage. There's many resources on the web for ink stills, but because I design in After Effects a lot, ink footage is all we need.